Commander Zethkar stood tall on the bridge of his warship, looking down at the small blue planet through the thick glass windows. His dark purple skin gleamed under the ship's lights, and his forearms moved quickly across the control panels. He had been a soldier for over 200 years, and in all that time, he had never lost a battle. The planet below looked peaceful. Swirling white clouds covered most of its surface, and Zethkar could see large bodies of water and green land masses. His scouts had been watching this world for months, and their reports were clear. The beings who lived here were weak and divided. They called themselves humans. Zethkar's species, the Valerians, had conquered 17 different worlds in the past 3 centuries. Each time the native species had tried to fight back, but none had lasted more than a few days. Were bigger, stronger, and smarter than most other life forms in the galaxy. Their weapons could melt through solid metal, and their soldiers were enhanced with special drugs that made them faster and more deadly. The reports about humans made Zethkar smile with his sharp teeth. These creatures still used primitive chemical rockets to travel between their own planet and its small moon. They fought wars against each other using explosive devices and metal projectiles. They had not even learned to work together as one species. Instead, they were split into hundreds of different groups that constantly argued and fought. "Commander," said his second officer, walking up behind him, "the advanced scouts have found the perfect target for our first attack." Zethkar turned around, his 4 eyes focusing on the young soldier. "Tell me about it." "It is a military base in a place called Colorado. The humans call it Fort Carson. Our scanners show about 3,000 human soldiers living there. They have vehicles, weapons, and communication systems. If we take this base quickly, the rest of the humans will understand that resistance is useless." The commander nodded slowly. 3,000 humans against his elite battalion of 200 enhanced Valerian warriors. It would hardly be a fair fight. The soldiers were each worth at least 20 ordinary fighters from other species. They had conquered. "How are their weapons?" Zethkar asked. "Very basic, sir. They use chemical explosives and metal bullets fired from simple tubes. Nothing that can penetrate our armor. Their vehicles are slow and clumsy. Most of their soldiers are not even enhanced." With drugs or surgery, Zethkar felt a warm feeling of satisfaction in his chest. This would be another easy victory to add to his long list of successful conquests. High Command had promised him a promotion if he could take this planet within 1 week. At this rate, he might finish the job in 2 days. "Prepare the drop pods," he ordered. "I will lead the attack myself." His officer looked surprised. "Sir, is that necessary? This appears to be a very simple operation." "I want to see these humans up close," Zethkar replied. "I've heard interesting stories about how different species react when they first see Valerian soldiers. Some try to run, others fall to their knees and surrender immediately. I am curious to see what humans will do." Over the next few hours, Zethkar's soldiers prepared for battle. They checked their plasma rifles, which could burn holes through solid rock. They tested their armor, which was made from materials harder than diamond. They loaded their drop pods with extra ammunition and medical supplies, though Zethkar doubted they would need either. The commander put on his own battle suit, a massive piece of equipment that made him look even more frightening than usual. The suit had built-in weapons, life support systems, and sensors that could track enemies from great distances. It was painted in the dark red colors of the Valerian Empire, with gold symbols showing his rank and achievements. As he sealed his helmet, Zethkar thought about his previous victories. He remembered the bird-like Cathani, who had tried to escape by flying away when his forces landed on their world. He thought about the Morlocks, who were strong but slow, and fell easily to Valerian speed and tactics. He smiled when he remembered the Zephyrians, who were so afraid of violence that they surrendered before the first shot was fired. "All units prepare for launch," Zethkar announced over the communication system. "We drop in 10 minutes. The drop pods were metal containers just big enough for 1 soldier each. They would fall from the ship like meteors, protected by energy shields until they hit the ground. Then the pods would open, and the Valerian soldiers would pour out ready for battle. Zethkar climbed into his command pod, which was larger than the others and filled with extra communication equipment. He could talk to all his soldiers during the battle and coordinate their attacks. Through the small window, he could see his ship moving closer to the planet's surface. "Commander, we are in position over the target," reported his pilot. "Human base is directly below us. Our sensors show normal activity. They do not appear to know we are here." The bottom of the ship opened, and 200 drop pods fell toward Earth like a metal rain. Storm. Zethkar felt the familiar excitement of battle beginning to build in his chest. Soon he would add another species to his list of conquests. Soon the humans would learn what it meant to face the might of the Valerian Empire, as his pod fell through Earth's atmosphere. Zethkar looked out at the landscape rushing toward him. He could see the human military base growing larger and larger. It had several large buildings, vehicle parking areas, and what looked like training grounds. There were humans walking around, going about their normal daily activities. They had no idea that their quiet morning was about to become a nightmare. Zethkar's pod hit the ground with a loud crash, sending dirt and rocks flying in all directions. Around him, he could hear the impacts of his soldiers' pods striking the earth. The attack had begun. He pressed the release button, and his pod opened with a hiss of escaping air. Zethkar stepped out into the morning sunlight, his plasma rifle ready, his sensors scanning for targets. The first human he saw was a soldier, walking toward the crash site. The human was much smaller than a Valerian, with pale skin and short brown hair. He wore a simple uniform and carried a basic projectile weapon. Zethkar expected the human to scream, or run, or fall down in terror. Instead, the human soldier did something unexpected. He spoke calmly into a small device attached to his shoulder, then took cover behind a concrete barrier and raised his weapon. The human soldier behind the concrete barrier did not look afraid. Zethkar found this strange and somewhat annoying. In his long career as a warrior, he had seen many different reactions when alien species first encountered Valerian soldiers. Fear was always the first response. Sometimes creatures would faint from terror. Others would cry or beg for mercy. But this human just crouched behind his cover and watched. Zethkar decided to end this quickly. He raised his plasma rifle and fired a bright blue beam at the concrete barrier. The weapon should have melted through the material like butter and killed the human instantly. Instead, the concrete absorbed most of the energy, leaving only a small black mark on its surface. "Interesting," Zethkar said to himself. These humans built stronger defenses than he had expected. More of his soldiers were climbing out of their drop pods now, but something was wrong. Instead of finding confused and frightened humans running in panic, they were meeting organized resistance. The human soldier behind the barrier spoke again into his communication device, and suddenly alarms began ringing throughout the base. Within seconds, humans appeared from buildings and doorways all around the landing zone. They moved with purpose and discipline that surprised Zethkar. These were not panicked civilians. These were trained soldiers who knew exactly what to do when under attack. "Squad leaders report," Zethkar commanded over his radio. "Squad 3, here came the first response. We are taking fire from multiple positions. The humans are using cover effectively." "Squad 7 reporting," said another voice. "These humans are not running away, sir. They are fighting back." Zethkar felt the first small seed of doubt growing in his mind. On every other world they had conquered, the native population had either fled or died quickly in the first few minutes of contact. But here, 5 minutes after landing, his soldiers were still in active combat. He watched as a human female with short, blonde hair led a group of soldiers from one building to another. She moved low and fast, using vehicles and structures to block line of sight with the Valerian forces. Her movements were smooth and professional. This was not the action of a primitive warrior. "Commander, I need support," called one of his squad. "Leaders, the humans have surrounded my position." This was impossible. Zethkar's forces had superior weapons, armor, and training. How could primitive humans surround enhanced Valerian soldiers? He activated his sensors and looked at the battlefield display inside his helmet. Red dots showed the positions of his own forces, while blue dots marked detected human soldiers. What he saw made his stomach feel cold. The humans were not fighting. Like any enemy he had faced before, instead of charging directly at the Valerian positions or running away in fear, they were moving in coordinated groups. They used the bases, buildings, and vehicles as cover, creating crossing fields of fire that trapped his soldiers in deadly zones. A loud explosion echoed across the base. One of Zethkar's drop pods erupted in flames and smoke. A human soldier had somehow managed to plant an explosive device on it while his warrior was distracted by other threats. "How did they get so close?" Zethkar demanded over the radio. "Sir, these humans move very quietly," replied the squad leader. "They use hand signals to communicate without making noise. My soldier never heard him coming. Hand signals. Quiet. Movement. Coordinated attacks." These were advanced military tactics that should have taken years of training to master. Yet these humans seemed to use them naturally, as if such fighting methods were basic knowledge. Zethkar decided to move closer to the action. He wanted to see these human soldiers with his own eyes and understand what made them different from other species. He advanced toward the nearest building, keeping his plasma rifle ready. As he rounded a corner, he came face to face with a human male who had been waiting for him. The human had dark skin and calm eyes that showed no fear when looking at the massive Valerian commander. "Morning," the human said in a conversational tone, as if they were meeting for coffee instead of deadly combat. Before Zethkar could react, the human threw a small metal object and dove sideways behind a wall. The object exploded with tremendous force, sending Zethkar stumbling backward. His armor protected him from serious injury, but the blast was powerful enough to damage his helmet's sensor display. When the smoke cleared, the human was gone. He had vanished like a ghost, leaving only the smell of explosives and the echo of that casual greeting. "All units, status report," Zethkar called, feeling increasingly concerned about how this battle was developing. The responses were not encouraging. Squad 2 had lost 3 soldiers to human sniper fire from elevated positions. Squad 5 was pinned down by what their leader described as impossibly accurate mortar attacks. Squad 8 reported that humans were using their own vehicles against them, ramming drop pods and blocking escape routes. Most disturbing of all was the report from Squad 4. Their leader spoke in a shaky voice that Zethkar had never heard from a Valerian soldier before. "Commander, we encountered a human female who threw herself on one of our plasma grenades. She died to save her squad members. I do not understand this behavior. Why would any creature voluntarily die for others?" Zethkar had no answer. In Valerian society, individual survival was the highest priority. Soldiers fought bravely, but they always looked for ways to live through battles. The idea of deliberately sacrificing one's life for others was completely foreign to their thinking. But apparently it was not foreign to humans. As the fighting continued, Zethkar began to notice other strange things about human behavior. They did not just defend their positions, they actively hunted as soldiers, setting traps and ambushes. They showed no respect for superior firepower, instead finding clever ways to neutralize Valerian advantages. A group of humans had somehow managed to redirect power from their base's electrical systems to create an improvised weapon that could overload Valerian armor. Another team was using construction equipment to build new barriers and create kill zones that channeled Valerian forces into disadvantageous positions. "Sir," came another radio call. "The humans are playing music." "What do you mean playing? Music?" They have activated some kind of audio system, sir. They are broadcasting human music across the battlefield while they fight. My soldiers find it very disturbing. Zethkar listened carefully and heard it too. Human voices singing in harmony, accompanied by instruments he did not recognize. Music was not random noise. It had rhythm and purpose that seemed to coordinate with human movements. They were fighting to a soundtrack. They were treating this deadly battle like some kind of performance. For the first time in 2 centuries of warfare, Commander Zethkar began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. The music grew louder as the battle continued. Zethkar could hear human voices singing something they called rock and roll, mixed with the sounds of gunfire and explosions. It created an atmosphere unlike anything he had experienced in 200 years of warfare. His soldiers were becoming confused and frightened. Valerian warriors were trained to fight in silence, using efficient communication and logical tactics. But these humans seemed to enjoy the chaos of combat. They laughed while shooting. They made jokes over captured radio frequencies. Some even danced between cover positions while bullets flew around them. "Commander, this is Squad 1, came an urgent radio call. We need immediate support. The humans have done something to our drop zone." The car looked toward the landing area where his forces had first touched down. What he saw made his 4 eyes widen in shock. The humans had somehow turned the entire zone into a maze of obstacles and traps. They had moved vehicles, created barriers from debris, and dug fighting positions in the ground in less than 30 minutes. They had completely changed the battlefield to their advantage. "How is this possible?" he asked his tactical officer. Over the radio, "Sir, these humans work together like they share one mind. While some fight, others build. While some attack, others defend. They never stop moving, never stop thinking." A massive explosion shook the ground beneath Zethkar's feet. Turned to see one of his heavy assault pods engulfed in flames. A human with red hair and freckles stood nearby, holding an empty rocket launcher and grinning widely. "Got another." "One," the human called to his friends. As if destroying advanced alien technology was just a fun game. This casual attitude toward violence disturbed Zethkar more than he wanted to admit. The humans did not treat this as a desperate fight for survival. They acted like they were having fun. He activated his personal communicator and tried to contact his ship in orbit. "Command vessel, this is ground team leader. I need immediate reinforcement." Static filled his helmet speakers. Then a human voice came through, speaking in broken Valerian language. "Hello there, purple guy. We found your communication frequency. Nice ship you have up there. It would be a shame if something happened to it." Zethkar's blood turned cold. Somehow the humans had not only detected his communications, but learned enough of his language to mock him. How long had they been listening? 2 Valerian radio traffic? Impossible, he muttered. "We have been watching this planet for months. They should not know our language or our technology." But even as he said it, Zethkar began to understand a terrible truth. These humans learned fast. Faster than any species he had ever encountered. They had been studying his forces from the moment of first contact, adapting and improving their tactics in real time. A new sound filled the air. Human aircraft were approaching from the east, flying low and fast. But these were not the primitive flying machines his scouts had reported. These looked different, more advanced, as if the humans had been hiding their true capabilities. "All squads, take cover," Zethkar ordered. "Enemy aircraft incoming." The human planes swept over the battlefield, dropping bombs with surgical precision. But they were not targeting the base buildings or civilian areas. They were specifically hunting Valerian positions, as if the pilots could see exactly where each alien soldier was hiding. "Sir, how do they know our positions so accurately?" asked one of his squad leaders. Before Zethkar could answer, he spotted something that made his stomach twist with dread. Human soldiers were moving between the bombing runs, coordinating ground attacks with air support in perfect timing. This level of coordination should have required weeks of planning and practice, yet the humans were doing it spontaneously, as if such complex military operations were natural to them. "Commander, we have a problem," came another radio call. "The humans are using our own weapons against us." "What do you mean?" "They captured some of our plasma rifles from fallen soldiers." But sir, they are not just using them. They are modifying them, making them work better. Zethkar felt his confidence crumbling. In his long military career, he had never seen any species successfully use Valerian technology. The weapons were designed specifically for Valerian physiology and required years of training to operate safely. But somehow, these humans had figured out how to use alien weapons in minutes instead of years. He decided to lead a direct assault on the main human command building. If he could eliminate their leadership, perhaps the coordinated resistance would collapse into chaos. Zethkar gathered his remaining personal guards and advanced toward a large structure in the center of the base. As they approached, he could see humans moving inside through the windows. They did not appear to be panicking or preparing to evacuate. They were waiting. The assault began at exactly noon. Zethkar's team smashed through the building's front entrance, expecting to find frightened human officers hiding behind desks. Instead, they walked into a carefully prepared killing field. Every corridor had been turned into a funnel that channeled attackers toward pre-positioned human defenders. The humans had removed doors, moved furniture, and created sight lines that gave them maximum advantage while minimizing Valerian fields of fire. "This is impossible," Zethkar said, as his soldiers began taking heavy casualties. They had less than an hour to prepare these defenses. But the evidence was all around him. The humans had not just adapted to Valerian tactics, they had anticipated them and prepared counters in advance. As his team fought through the building, Zethkar began to hear something that chilled him to his core. The humans inside were not shouting orders or crying out in fear. They were singing. The same voices that had been broadcasting music across the battlefield were now harmonizing while they fought hand-to-hand combat against enhanced alien warriors. They sang about home, about freedom, about protecting the people they loved, and they sang while they killed his soldiers with ruthless efficiency. "Fall back," Zethkar ordered, his voice shaking for the first time in decades. "All units fall back to the extraction point." As his forces retreated from the building, Zethkar looked back one last time. Through a window, he could see a human female officer studying a captured Valerian weapon with intense concentration. She was not afraid of the alien technology. She was trying to understand how to make it more effective. In that moment, Zethkar realized he was not fighting primitive warriors. He was fighting a species that treated warfare like science, improved through every encounter, and refused to be intimidated by anything. The retreat turned into a nightmare. What should have been an organized withdrawal became a desperate flight for survival. Zethkar's forces found themselves hunted through their own landing zone by humans who seemed to appear from nowhere and vanish like ghosts. The extraction point was a small clearing where emergency transport pods could pick up his remaining soldiers. But when Zethkar arrived, he discovered the humans had been there first. His escape pods lay in burning wreckage, destroyed by precisely placed explosive charges. "Sir, how did they know where we planned to extract?" asked his surviving tactical. Officer Zethkar had no answer. The humans seemed to think several steps ahead of every Valerian move. It was as if they could read his mind and predict his strategies before he made them. "Command vessel, this is ground team," he called desperately into his radio. "We need immediate pickup. Send all available transport." Static answered him for several long seconds. Then a calm human voice spoke in perfect Valerian language. "Ship is a little busy right now, Commander. We are having a conversation with your captain about the benefits of leaving our solar system permanently." Zethkar felt his world spinning out of control. His warship in orbit was the most advanced vessel in the Valerian fleet, with shields and weapons that could destroy entire cities. How could primitive humans possibly threaten it? "You're lying," he said into the radio. "Human technology cannot harm Valerian ships." Laughter came through the speakers, and multiple human voices laughing together like they had just heard the funniest. "Joke in the galaxy. Check your sensors, purple boy. Look up." Against his better judgment, Zethkar activated his helmet's long-range scanners and pointed them toward the sky. What he saw made his knees weak. His massive warship was surrounded by dozens of small human spacecraft. They looked nothing like the primitive rockets his scouts had reported. These ships moved with impossible speed and agility, darting around. His vessel like angry insects around a giant animal, but more terrifying than their numbers was what they were doing. The human ships were not attacking his warship, scanning it, learning from it. "We really appreciate you bringing us such advanced technology," the human voice continued over the radio. "Ow. Our engineers are very excited too. See how your engines work? Those plasma weapons are fascinating. We have some ideas for improvements. Zethkar whispered. "Oh yes, you Valerians are good at making things powerful, but humans are good at making things efficient. We think we can make your weapons about 3 times more effective with some simple modifications." The implications hit Zethkar like a physical blow. These humans were not just defending themselves. They were stealing Valerian technology and improving it in real time. Within hours of first contact, they were already making alien weapons work, better than their original designers had intended. A new sound filled the air around him. More human aircraft approaching, but these looked different from the others. They appeared to be built from a combination of human and Valerian technology, impossible hybrid machines that should not have been able to fly. "How?" Zethkar asked. A loud one of the hybrid aircraft landed near his position. The pilot climbed out and removed her helmet, revealing a young human female with bright green eyes and a confident smile. "Easy," she said, apparently having heard his question through intercepted radio communications. "We took your engine technology, combined it with our flight computers, and added a few modifications you probably never thought of. Want to see?" Pressed a button on a small device, and the aircraft lifted off the ground without making any sound. It hovered silently in the air, like magic. "Silent running mode," she explained cheerfully. "Your ships are powerful but very noisy. Perfect for intimidation, terrible for stealth. We fixed that problem." Around the battlefield, Zethkar could see the remaining members of his elite battalion surrendering to human forces, not because they were out of ammunition or wounded, but because they were psychologically broken. The humans had not just defeated them militarily. They had made Valerian soldiers afraid. "Commander," came a weak voice over his radio. "This is Squad 2. The humans are offering to let us go home." "What do you mean?" "They say if we promise never to come back to their solar system, they will give us a ship and let us leave. They are not interested in keeping prisoners. They just want us gone." This was perhaps the most disturbing revelation of all. The humans were confident enough in their abilities that they were willing to let armed enemies return to their own territory. They were not afraid of retaliation. They wanted the Valerians to go home and tell others what had happened here. His tactical officer said quietly, "I recommend we accept their offer." Zethkar looked around at the battlefield one final time. His 200 elite soldiers had been reduced to fewer than 30 effective fighters. Like the human base they had, intended to capture in ours, was still fully operational. Worse, the humans had captured enough Valerian technology to reverse engineer weapons that could threaten the entire empire. "All remaining units," he said into his radio, "lay down your weapons. We surrender." The response from the humans was immediate and unexpected. They cheered, not with the savage joy of victorious primitives, but with the satisfaction of professionals who had completed a difficult job well done. A human male with gray hair and kind eyes approached Zethkar's position. He moved slowly and kept his hands visible, showing respect even for a defeated enemy. "Commander," the human said in accented but understandable Valerian, "my name is Colonel Kevin Brown. I want you to know that your soldiers fought bravely. We respect courage, even in our enemies." "How do you speak our language?" Zethkar asked. "We have been listening to your communications since you entered our solar system. One of our computer programs learned your language in about 6 hours. Fascinating grammatical structure, by the way. 6 hours. They had decoded an alien language in 6 hours." "Why are you letting us go?" Zethkar asked. Colonel Brown smiled sadly. "Because we want you to go home and tell your people something very important. Tell them that humans are not conquerors. We do not want to rule other worlds or destroy other species. But we will defend ourselves, and we will defend our friends. Friends? Any species that chooses peace over conquest? Any civilization that prefers cooperation to domination? Earth will always be ready to help them. The colonel paused and looked directly into Zethkar's eyes. But for those who come here seeking easy prey, who think humans are weak because we value life over power, tell them this. We are not the species you want to test. We are not the enemy you want to make. 3 months later, back on the Valerian homeworld, Zethkar sat in his empty apartment, staring at the wall. His military career was over. His reputation was destroyed. High Command had classified Earth as a forbidden zone and ordered all military forces to avoid human space permanently, but the official reports did not capture the real truth. They did not describe how humans had made elite Valerian soldiers feel helpless and afraid. They did not explain how a species barely capable of interplanetary travel had defeated the most advanced military force in known space. Most nights, could not sleep. When he did manage to close his eyes, he dreamed of human voices singing while they fought. He remembered their laughter echoing across the battlefield. He saw their confident smiles as they turned his own technology against him, and he woke up knowing that humanity was the most dangerous species in the galaxy precisely because they did not want to be.